This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
What is going on, real MVPs? Welcome inside another edition of What's Your Fantasy? Brandon Swanson, and across from me is the Ricky Widmer.
What's up, guys?
And we have got so much to talk about. Week 1 is almost in the books, not fully. There are, as we speak, 2 Monday night games that are going to be happening. One happening right now, the Lions and the Jets, and then Oakland and the Rams later on tonight. I really like that about Week 1, that you get 2 Monday night games. I appreciate that very much. It's fun. It's a reason to go to work on Monday and then want to get through it so quickly so that you can get to 2 Monday night football games.
And for fantasy, it gives it an extra. They always say it comes down to Monday night. The first week really comes down to Monday because you got 2 games, not just 1.
It does, and I don't like that, especially if I'm down and I need guys on Monday night. How many times, Ricky, that I've been over at your house and it has literally come down to that Monday night?
It's because you usually have a Lions player on Monday night, and the Lions don't play well on Monday night.
Well, they're certainly not playing right now, and I got 3 of them.
Well, we're going up against 2 of them.
It's a personal problem.
Yeah, we're going up against 2 of them, so let's hope that Austin's Lions don't play well.
So we did want to talk about first how our team has done this week.
And Ricky, really good.
I'll throw it over to you. Throw it over to you.
A little bit of an update from the What's Your Fantasy side. We're in a close one with Austin right now. I mean, as the Monday night games are going on, as we're recording, we're up 83.1 to 63.9. He's got Matthew Stafford, Marvin Jones, and Greg Zuerlein. We've got girly fries going tonight for us for the Rams against the Raiders. I hope he gets like 37 points.
Yes, that would be nice.
And we just roll in this one. But yeah, we got good performance from Rodgers, Lamar Miller, Thielen had a good one. The only thing that kind of screwed us was Will Fuller didn't play, and I decided to play Rashard Matthews over Benjamin Watson, and Rashard Matthews had 0 points and Watson had 8.4. So that didn't help, but at least we're winning right now. We're winning, which all that matters is that we win, and we survive the 4 weeks until we get Mark Ingram and Julian Edelman back.
And thank God for the team doctors for with Green Bay saying, yeah, Aaron, go ahead. Go right back out there in the second half because
it helped us.
The way that ended up last night, Ricky, as Al Michaels and Chris Collinsworth were talking about on the broadcast, and they are 100% right, how often is it, and it's not very at all, that you see a guy go out on the card and then he's back in the game in that same game.
I played you the post-game interview and the Snapchat thing that someone had of like, man, how many pills did they hop him up on? They had like the pill emoji and the syringe emoji because he got so many painkillers in that locker room to where it's like, hey, here's a handful. We need you to go out there again. We need you to win this game. And he seemed a little loopy in that post-game interview. So what was it actually? Money? Most candid answer you'll get out of Aaron Rodgers, who wasn't telling you to relax for once.
Well, he seemed pretty relaxed out there. The Bears defense certainly didn't do them any favors in that second half. The first half, though, anyone who had the Bears defense last night, you had a first half where you went, wow. I wasn't quite sure about picking that Bears defense, but I am glad I did.
Andy Gonzalez in our league had him, and 13 points at the end of the game ain't bad.
That's not bad, especially for the second half. And let's be honest, that fourth quarter that you played so poorly, the Bears defense. But Aaron Rodgers certainly picking it up, 289 yards, 3 touchdowns on the night. And he was just a guy who was on fire, on a mission there in the fourth quarter. That was absolutely unbelievable. But if anyone could do it, it would be Aaron Rodgers.
And the one thing I want to throw out there, only because Riley wanted us to mention his team this week, Riley is in the books. He doesn't have a Monday night game. He'll probably win his game this week. He's winning right now 145.2 to 58.3. And Andy Gonzalez has Golden Tate right now and Cooper Kupp tonight. So he's gonna need a lot of points from his wide receivers if he wants to win. But Riley got good performances out of Mike Evans, who had 27.7. Eric Ebron had a good game. Devonta Adams and David Johnson had good games, along with Phillip Rivers, who had 29 points for him in week 1.
That's a pretty good week.
Yeah, I'm glad you didn't bring up. I just kind of glanced over Mike Evans, 27.7.
Yeah.
Just kind of glanced right over that. Glancing right over Tyreek Hill also at 42 points this week.
I just want to continue to tell you how much of a moron you are.
As long as we win games, I don't care.
I just don't understand.
long as
I
we
just
win.
don't understand why you thought that picking Adam Thielen would be better than Mike Evans or Tyreek Hill.
I don't know what goes through my head half the time.
No,
so.
but that's why it's even. Can I trust you from now on?
Yeah, I think we're winning game 1, so obviously you can.
I don't know.
I mean, we are the fourth highest point total out of 12 teams, but I mean, we are 4 from the bottom. Like there are 3 teams below us in scoring this week, so we're not scoring that many points. But hey, we're gonna win the game.
I wonder why that is. That we're not scoring many points. But, Ricky, of the performances on our team this week, which performance are you most impressed with? Which performance are you, I guess, the least impressed with and the most concerned with maybe going forward?
I mean, Aaron Rodgers, on that. If he got 24.9 with an injury, can't wait till he's healthy. We'll see what Jared Goff does tonight because we might have to start him next week as Aaron Rodgers going up against our defense, the Vikings. I'm going to keep... With the one I'm concerned with, it's really, I mean, can I say most of our team? But Calvin Ridley, because it's like, me and you talked about it Monday of like, oh, let's put him in the starting lineup. He'll probably get some receptions. He got 0 points. What are you doing, Atlanta? I get that Julio Jones is like the second coming of Jesus Christ at the wide receiver position, but can you throw it to Calvin Ridley every once in a while? It's a PPR. A catch still helps us. That's the one thing I could not understand. And then Tennessee, do you not Rashard Matthews and Calvin Ridley getting 0 points kind of upset me. But hey, the rest of our bench had 0 points because 3 of them didn't play.
That's where I'm at right now. Is I'm at the point where, Ricky, you told me before we came on tonight that our bench could have had a really good chance to get 0 points.
Benjamin Watson saved us.
Two of those guys, I understand, yes, are suspended, but
one's injured.
That is on you to take two suspended guys. And if we lose in the first 4 weeks, it's certainly on you. I'm going to actually put any loss on you this season. Wins I'll give myself. But I think you're right with Calvin Ridley. There's a reason to be concerned there. But also, Atlanta looked so bad. They looked so bad in that game on Thursday night.
I just don't get it.
There was also, it didn't seem like anyone else was really involved. I mean, nobody else was very involved at all. You had, let's see, Austin Hooper, who only caught 3 passes. You had Mohamed Sanu, who barely got into the action.
4 catches.
Calvin Ridley, who was certainly not involved at all.
But then 10 of them to Julio Jones. Like, what the hell?
But that's the thing. And if that's how it's going to go for the rest of the season, I don't think that they're going to be, Matt Ryan's going to be targeting Julio Jones that often. No. But what's the distribution going to be like? That's my worry, is what's that distribution? Who's the guy right after Julio Jones? Is it going to be Mohamed Sanu? Most likely it's going to be.
You know what's even worse, too? You know who I almost picked up? Because I'm like, Rashard Matthews, Benjamin Watson, but then I looked at the wide receivers and I went, oh, I'm like, Ted Ginn is still out there. But I didn't do it. Because he was only projected 1 more point than Rashard Matthews. You want to know how many points Ted Ginn had?
He had 19?
20.3. So, I mean, hey, if we do lose this game, maybe we'll be in a good shot to get Ted Ginn on waivers. But I don't know. I haven't looked at what we'll do on waivers yet. But, yeah, we're going to have to do some overhauling to those skill positions this week.
Yes, I think you are very right. I think you are very right on that. And actually, that brings us to a really good segue there. Waivers and injuries.
Yes.
There were some injuries around the league this week, and one of the big injuries out for the season, tight end Delanie Walker for the Tennessee Titans, and he is done. Shut down for the year, broken ankle, and some ligament damage per sources. That's a terrible loss for Tennessee, and that is a terrible loss for anyone who took him in fantasy, because Delanie Walker for so long has been one of those very consistent players, one of those very consistent tight end players at the tight end position, he's going to get you probably 10 points a week on average, most likely. And especially with Marcus Mariota would like to go to him a lot. That was his safety blanket. That was his safety net for sure. Delanie Walker is now done for the year, and there's probably not a whole lot of tight ends that you can go out and get that are going to be on your waiver wire. No,
and I mean, for example, I'm looking at our waiver wire in our league, and the top tight end that you can go and get in the ESPN or the MVP fantasy league is Cameron Brate, who did not have a reception this week. Like, it's Cameron Brate, Jared Cook, who will play tonight, and then after that, you've got names like Tyler Kroft, you've got Austin Hooper, who had about 5 points, Charles Clay. I wouldn't touch anyone on that Bills team whatsoever. Probably your best bet if you have Demeen, I'm going to kind of package another guy in there. If you have either Greg Olsen or Delanie Walker, I would go after Jesse James. He's a guy that only had 3 receptions for 60 yards, but he had 9 points. Like, that adds up to 9 points. He's a guy that could have like 3-4 catches for about 50 to 65 yards. And then if he gets a touchdown, he's getting you double-digit points. Like, that is probably your best bet, is to go after a guy like Jesse James, who's only owned in, he's owned in 23.2% of, no, I'm sorry, he's owned in 1.8% of ESPN fantasy leagues. So he's available. He's out there. You just got to go get him.
Is George Kittle available?
Not in our league, no. But I can look up to see if, like, how available he is in other people's leagues. But he's one too that he had a lot of targets yesterday.
Ton of targets. I think led the team in targets.
Yeah, he's owned in our league. He's owned by Austin has him, but overall George Kittle is only owned in 37.1% of leagues. So he's another guy you can go after and say, hey, you know what? I got to go and get him.
I'm just trying to think of some other tight ends that could be available out there. You know, see, like, we have one of those guys.
Benjamin Watson.
I was just going to say, we have 35%. One of those guys. Benjamin Watson, we have him on our team. That's one of those guys that people are now going to be going and looking at and seeing, hey, can I pick him up?
Probably, like, the start of it is, because I'm looking just at the percentage owned, you've got a good amount of the guys are like 100 to 80, and then there's a drop-off. So you've got David Njoku, who's the last one at 81.8, and then there's a huge drop-off, like Tyler Eifert, 59.9, then Charles Clay. Like I said, I wouldn't touch anyone on Buffalo, but 53%.
What about Eric Ebron?
Then it's
Eric Ebron was the guy who caught the touchdown, was the tight end who caught the touchdown yesterday in Indy.
Ebron had 16.4% of leagues. So it's like there are tight ends out there. You just have to see who's available in your league. For me, like I said, Jesse James is a guy that I would go after. I wouldn't be scared to go after a Benjamin Watson. Because, like, the thing is, you're like, yeah, but it's New Orleans. But, yeah, it's New Orleans. Everyone on that receiving core is going to touch the ball. If you had Delanie Walker, if Benjamin Watson can get you 8 points at the least a week, I'm fine with that from that tight end spot, because you're dealing with an injury Or if you're like, hey, you know what? I'm first on the waiver wire. I had Delanie Walker go down. George Kittle he's gonna get receptions. Like Jimmy Garoppolo is gonna throw to him. And like I mentioned, he is only owned in 37.1% of ESPN fantasy leagues.
Ricky, another tight end that went down, Greg Olsen, as you made mention to. Greg Olsen with that same foot that he broke last year that then kept him out for the entire rest of the season. It's the same foot again, and that is not good news. And there has not been I have not seen a report that has come out to say whether or not Olsen is looking good for this week or not. But I'm thinking if it's that same foot from last year, he could be missing a little bit of time, and that's another guy that you may have to go and replace. And again, the thing that really hurts the most is that these are not just, middle of the road type of guys. These are tight ends that get you solid numbers each and every week. Greg Olsen is the top target for Cam Newton. And then Delanie Walker is the top target for Marcus Mariota. Marcus Mariota, a quarterback that went down.
So I got a question for you, and this is a huge hypothetical. So last week, as I'm listening to fantasy podcasts, there's a lot of people that were talking about the Le'Veon Bell situation like we talked about last week. And there were a lot of people that were like, do I package a deal for him? Because if he misses 2 games, 3 games, if I lose those games, if I lose the first 3 games of my season could be over in fantasy, depending on playoffs and how many teams make it. I want to ask you this hypothetical, and you can think of it on the side of a Le'Veon Bell owner or a Travis Kelce owner, whichever side you want. Travis Kelce in that game only had 1 reception for 6 yards. He finished our league with 1.6 points in that game. If you are a Le'Veon Bell owner in this hypothetical, do you maybe offer a trade? Let's say you had a Delanie Walker or a Greg Olsen, but you have Le'Veon. Do you try to offer a trade for like Le'Veon, Travis Kelce, trying to get someone who might be panicking that their tight end didn't do well, but also you're saying, hey, you know what? Le'Veon might sit out games. Travis Kelce could be fine after this first one. It could have just been a week 1 fluke.
Well, for the Le'Veon Bell owner, it comes down to who else do you have at the running back position. And if you're just going straight up, it also comes down to the person you're trying to trade. Yeah. Who do they have at the running back position that they would need Bell that badly? And who else would they have at tight end? Who else could they go out and get at tight end? Because you're not going to make your team worse. You're going to try and want to make your team better. And I don't think right now that's probably going to be something. If someone was trying to trade Le'Veon Bell, unless there was a person on the opposite end that was just so in need of a running back that they were willing to do that they were willing to go after him, I don't see that as something that would happen.
Because, I mean, I'll ask you this. You're a Bears fan, but also a Chiefs fan. To the Travis Kelce owner that may be watching or listening, they might be on the ledge panicking. Talk them off the ledge a little bit. Is this going to be something that we see from Kansas City, that Patrick Mahomes is not going to be like Alex Smith and he's not going to look to Travis Kelce as much as Alex did? Or is this just a, hey, this was week 1, Tyreek Hill was feeling it, Travis Kelce kind of got lost in this game and only had 1 catch. It's not going to be the norm.
Well, there's a number of things there. So Travis Kelce, yes, only ends the day with 1 catch, 6 yards on 6 targets. He should have caught another pass, but he dropped it in the red zone. It wouldn't have been a touchdown, but it would have been probably a 12-yard gain or so.
Yeah, which would have added, about 1.2 points to his total?
Yeah, so we would have had, 2 catches for 18 yards.
Yeah.
But also, the last couple of times he's played against the Chargers, he has not scored any touchdowns, and I think the Chargers have held him under 60 yards receiving. The Chargers have found a way to shut down Travis Kelce. Most teams have not. That's why I don't really worry about it. Travis Kelce, I have him on my team in one of my big leagues. I'm not worried. I'm not worried. My backup tight end is Benjamin Watson. I'm not worried about Travis Kelce. I think that he is a great tight end. Patrick Mahomes knows he's a great tight end. Yes, yesterday the hot hand was with Tyreek Hill. You wanted to keep going to Tyreek Hill. You wanted to keep trying to make plays for him because the Chargers were showing they couldn't cover him at any point. With Travis Kelce, he may have gotten lost yesterday. He still had 6 targets. He may have gotten lost yesterday. He's not going to be lost throughout the season. He has games like this every once in a while. But then you also have to remember, he also can have a game where he has 10 catches for 100 yards and a touchdown. Games where he has 8 catches for 80 yards, 2 touchdowns. Travis Kelce is that type of player. Remember, everyone got excited when Trey Burton went over to the Chicago Bears, and a lot of people went out and tried to get Trey Burton from a fantasy perspective because Trey Burton is supposed to be the Travis Kelce and Matt Nagy's offense. When
5% of ESPN leagues he's owned in.
When people are going and getting him, and you're labeling a player after Travis Kelce, you're the Travis Kelce in the offense.
Yeah.
That's really good. That speaks volumes to the type of player you are because Kelce isn't just a tight end. He's a tight end / receiver.
Yeah.
I mean, he is going for deep routes over the middle. You see that a lot. And in the red zone, that's a guy that you're going to be looking at. So I don't think that this is any time to be worrying about Travis Kelce.
What I would say is I'm going to speak on the other side of the Delanie Walker and the Greg Olsen owners. If you're sitting there and let's say you have Delanie Walker, who's out for the year, and you're sitting there, you're looking at your waiver wire, you're like, shit, I won this week. I'm not going to be able to get a George Kittle. I'm not going to be able to get a Benjamin Watson, and I don't really want a Jesse James. Thanks, Ricky, but I don't really want Jesse James. What I would say is offer a trade for Travis Kelce. Because what I would do is right now I feel like Travis Kelce owners are panicking. Mostly because he was so reliable last year with Alex Smith, and now with the uncertainty with Matt Nagy gone and Patrick Mahomes in. It's kind of like a similar thing when Dak Prescott came in Dallas. Jason Witten owners were great in Dallas. Tony Romo's always going to throw to Jason Witten. He's the safety blanket. It's kind of like Antonio Gates for the longest time in Phillip Rivers. Phillip Rivers is going to find Antonio Gates. It's a safety blanket. Same thing what I believe Matt Ryan overlapped with Tony Gonzalez. You get it, safety blanket. But once Dak Prescott came in, I was even talking to you about this today, Jason Witten wasn't the safety blanket. Cole Beasley was the safety blanket. If Dak Prescott needed to go to a guy, he's going to Cole Beasley. I even read you the numbers off the podcast for this week where Allen Hurns only had 3 targets on 1 catch. Cole Beasley had 7 catches on 8 targets. It's like, and you were like, oh no, Allen Hurns is the number 1 receiver. I was like, yeah, but he's not getting the targets. Travis Kelce owners are probably panicking because they might be thinking that same thing with Patrick Mahomes. Oh no, Patrick Mahomes doesn't think of Travis Kelce the same way Alex Smith did. If I'm a Delanie Walker owner and I have something that I can offer of value to a Travis Kelce owner, I try to jump on that because it's a yin and yang where, like you, I don't think this is going to be a norm for Travis Kelce. But the bad thing is I'm not in love with Travis Kelce as a tight end. His next 6 defenses that he goes up against. Pittsburgh, who, just for example, the Browns and Njoku only had 4.3 points against that defense. You look at San Fran after that. Kyle Rudolph only had 8.1 points this week against that defense. Now, I know the Minnesota thing's a little bit iffy, too, because Stephon Diggs, Adam Thielen are also receivers. Dalvin Cook, there's a lot of options in Minnesota. Denver, that's another tough defense. Jacksonville, another tough defense.
You say that Denver's a tough defense, but look at what who was that, Disley yesterday?
I'm going to look it up for Seattle.
For Seattle, he had 3 catches, 105 yards, and a touchdown. Yeah, and he's a tight end, I believe.
Nick Vannett had the tight ends for Seattle. Nick Vannett had only one catch for 11 yards.
What about that Dissly guy? I don't think that was a wide receiver.
You're talking about wide receivers?
I thought that was a tight end.
I am not seeing a Dissly on their team. I'm seeing, for wide receivers, Doug Baldwin, Tyler Lockett, Brandon Marshall, who he had a touchdown in that game, and then Jerron Brown, who had 1.7, and then the rest of theirs didn't really play in Seattle. There it is. I found him. You're right. He had 3 catches for 105 yards and a touchdown. He's owned in 0.1%. Do you take a stab on him after what you saw?
That's a major flyer, and there's a lot of guys. That's why you have to work the waiver wire just right. And I know it's like, well, how do you work it just right? Because you don't want to be...
He's got Chicago at home.
You don't want to be late on getting somebody, but you also don't want to be early on getting the wrong guy. And that's the worst part about it. Ricky, I want to go back to Travis Kelce again here.
Yep.
His last 2 games against the Chargers. Last year in his first game against them, he had 1 catch on 1 target for 1 yard. In his second game against the Chargers last year, he had 6 catches on 7 targets for 46 yards, no TDs. That was with Alex Smith. That was with a guy who absolutely loved throwing to Travis Kelce. And that's what he got. He also last year, in back-to-back games, against Pittsburgh, he had 4 catches for 37 yards. Against Oakland, he had 4 catches for 33 yards. He did get a touchdown there. And then Buffalo, 3 catches, 39 yards, no TDs. I mean, I think that there are going to be clunkers for every stud fantasy player. That's going to happen. Travis Kelce is a stud fantasy player. He had over 1,000 yards last year, 8 touchdowns, but he had a couple of clunkers. That's going to happen. You're gonna have to take that. It just so happened that it happened week 1 this year. It just so happened that it happened week 1. He may go out against the Steelers next week, have 10 catches for 80 yards and a score. It could totally happen. But that's why you cannot be done with Travis Kelce. You can't be worried already with Travis Kelce and say, oh, he's not going to get as many looks. It's not going to happen. Mahomes doesn't like him as much. Mahomes has a better rapport with Tyreek
Hill.
Tyreek Hill, thanks. I was really blanking.
I was like, there's not many other ones.
Yeah,
Sammy Watkins?
But Sammy Watkins is garbage. But I think that Travis Kelce should still be in your lineup each and every week unless your other option is Gronkowski.
So I got another one. This is getting a little bit away from Travis Kelce. And this is yet again, if you have Delanie Walker, you have Greg Olsen. If the waiver wire can't help you, because let's say you're in a 12-team or higher league, and the tight end's out there, you're just like, I'm too low on the waiver wire. I didn't get the tight end that I want. I want to ask you another guy if you would be confident in going after him if you needed to make a trade for a tight end. Jordan Reed. If we're basing it off of our league, he had 14.8 points. And talking about Kansas City, Alex Smith is over there. It seemed like after one game, yes, the Jordan Reed asterisk has to be there of if he is healthy. Same thing with Thompson, who also had a good game in the running back spot for them. But how confident would you be to, let's say you didn't get the tight end you needed in the waiver wire and you need a tight end to replace Delanie Walker, would you think about making a trade for a Jordan Reed because of Alex Smith now being his quarterback?
I would not be completely confident about that because Jordan Reed is the guy who, yes, he's got all the talent in the world and a ton of skill, but he's also the guy who cannot seem to stay healthy. He had a nice game yesterday, but is he going to stay healthy for all 16 games? And I cannot say with 100% certainty. And with Jordan Reed, I have to say with 100% certainty that he's going to be healthy. I can't say that.
Yeah, see, it all depends for me of who you're offering up. And here's what I'm kind of thinking in my head. And this is what I would do if I was a fantasy owner. So one guy who did really well this past week, James Conner. The Steelers said they were going to use him just like Le'Veon Bell, and they did. And he had 34.2 fantasy points in our league. What I would almost do is if I had a James Conner, and I know this is getting away from a little bit from the Delanie Walker thing, but like if I had a guy like James Conner, or if I had a guy like Dion Lewis, a guy on my bench that might have had a good week one, that maybe I could say, hey, you know what? And James Conner is the situation I'm using because the news on the Le'Veon Bell front is that they expect him to be back by the end of September. That means with James Conner, you only have 3 more games of use with him. And he's got to go up against KC, Tampa Bay, Baltimore. 2 of those are probably a little favorable. That Baltimore one will be tough because Baltimore did look good. I know they played the Bills, but we'll see how they look in week 2.
But even Tampa Bay, I mean, look at
but they're
Alvin Kamara.
I know
defense, he only had
their defense let up points to the running back.
They did, but Kamara only had 8. He only carried the ball 8 times. He only had 29 yards on the ground.
A lot of it was through the air passing.
It was correct, but I'm just saying on the ground.
I would almost say if I was a James Conner owner, it's one of those things of like, okay, if I need a tight end and I have James Conner, I would maybe try to offer up a trade, not for the Travis Kelce. I don't think that owner is going to be swindled. To try to swindle maybe a Jordan Reed one, because it's like, okay, I know there's injury questions with Jordan Reed, but James Conner only has, from what the news is and what the Steelers, because the Steelers are like, oh, we're not going to trade him. We've taken away the franchise tag. It kind of seems like they're thinking, oh, the end of September is going to be when Le'Veon comes back, or that they're going to get a deal done by then. That means your games are limited. They could get a deal done this week and Le'Veon's back week 3 or week 2. And that means James Conner's fantasy stock just went right down the toilet. And if I'm a James Conner owner, sell high, buy low. Sell high on James Conner. Get a guy, if you need a tight end, get a guy like Jordan Reed that you can use, because the thing I like about Jordan Reed this year, if he's healthy, Alex Smith loves throwing to the tight end, and it was proven in game 1. And if you've got Jordan Reed, you're going to have a solid tight end this year because Alex Smith is going to want to throw it right to him most of the time.
No, I think you're right, and I agree with you there. I am weary. I'm weary of Jordan Reed because having him on your team, it's a great thing. But then all of a sudden he gets hurt, and all the production that you thought you were going to get, it's now out the window, and you just gave up whoever you just gave up to get him. And let's say it was Conner. You look at it and you're like, well, that's all for nothing.
Yeah.
Another guy I wanted to bring up who is injured. We're not sure for how long. He says he's good. They all do. Aaron Rodgers could have broken his leg last night. He would have said, I'm fine. I'm good. I'm feeling real good.
Painkillers are a magical thing, man. Just ask Calvin Johnson, who retired because of it.
Leonard Fournette. So...
You threw a curveball. I thought you were going quarterback Aaron Rodgers, and you're throwing Leonard Fournette at me.
No, Leonard Fournette goes down with a hammy yesterday. Carried the ball 9 times, 41 yards. I know he was on his way to a good game. I felt it.
I told you last week. I called it.
But he
called it last week.
He's now... He was out of the game the rest of the game yesterday, and now he's iffy. Is he going to be ready to go week 2? And if he's not, are you going right out there and scooping up TJ Yeldon?
TJ Yeldon had a good one. That, like, see, it's iffy with, that's the thing. It's like, am I picking up TJ Yeldon? I'm only picking up TJ Yeldon if I know for sure Leonard Fournette's going to be out, because TJ Yeldon, if Leonard Fournette was playing, would not have had the week he had. He had 15.9 points in our league, and most of those were when Leonard Fournette was out of the game. The guy I am kind of putting a spotlight on. And the double-edged sword of being in a fantasy league with our fans is that we talk about this stuff and it's what we're thinking. So we're kind of giving away the secrets of what we're kind of thinking for waiver wire. But the guy, it's funny you asked about the running backs. I was going to ask you about this guy anyways. I would seriously think this week about putting in a claim on Austin Eckler, running back from San Diego, or LA, pardon me. It's still confusing.
Well, a little slip there.
The Chargers, basically, because, Melvin Gordon was the second highest fantasy total run among running backs in our league with 27.6. But Eckler was right behind him with 23.6. So for me, Eckler's only owned in 11% of leagues. He was dropped in about 0.9% of them before this week. I'm going and picking up him because it's almost like it doesn't matter if Melvin Gordon's out there. He's still going to be involved, and I think that would be better than getting a TJ Yeldon that if Leonard Fournette isn't completely out, Leonard Fournette's number or TJ Yeldon's numbers get dampered. And TJ Yeldon didn't have nearly as many points as Eckler did week 1 against KC. And guess who the Chargers are playing this week? The worst team in the NFL, the Buffalo Bills. I'm just going to call it. They're going to be the worst team this year. Number 1 pick.
What would make you think that they would be bad?
I don't know. Did you see game 1?
That was sad. That was really sad. Anyone who was a LaShawn McCoy owner, they were not liking it.
When Dave drafted him in our draft, I said right away, I don't like that pick. And the reason why I don't like LaShawn McCoy this year is mainly one thing. He's getting to that magical age. That age where I said to you before the podcast, off the podcast, he's getting to that age where basically we take running backs behind the shed and give them the old Lassie treatment or the old Yeller treatment, whatever the reference is. He's getting to 30. Like he's hitting that Mendoza line where it's like, well, this is where they usually fall off the cliff. So, I mean, when you got guys like Le'Veon Bell who are about 4 years younger than him, I mean, I'll take the younger guys rather than the older guy. And that's why I wasn't really high on LaShawn McCoy coming into this year anyways.
No, I wasn't also high on him because of the at the time, the impending possible suspension that was still looming over him. Do you touch any of the running backs over in San Francisco right now? Because before it was, it
was Carlos Hyde's job, but now he's in Cleveland.
But what I was going to say is that it was going to be obviously Jerick McKinnon. And McKinnon was supposed to be this guy who was going to do wonders in Kyle Shanahan's offense. He is done for the year with an ACL. Do you take anyone? Do you take a Morris? Do you take a Breida?
Here's what I do. If let's say you're sitting on the waiver wire and you're like, you know what, I'm not going to get any of the other guys I want. If I pick up an Alfred Morris, it's because it's the last choice that I have this week, but I don't play him. Because here's the question that I still have about that 49er backfield. Are they bad or was the defense they played just really good? And I'm leaning more on the latter than the former. Like, they played the Vikings week 1. What did you expect them to do? Did you expect them to be world beaters in that first game? No, not a chance. I mean, I know that Breida had 6 points, whereas Alfred Morris only had 1 point. But, I mean, I look at it and I go, I would look at Alfred Morris because he they were both splitting carries. It really doesn't matter which one you take. Just if you take one of them, don't start them this week, because what I would like to see against Detroit next week is, were you guys just terrible this week 1, or did you go up against arguably the best defense in the NFL last week in Minnesota? Definitely the best fantasy scoring defense from last year, and they proved it in week 1, helping us out with 18 fantasy points.
Absolutely. And I would go to what you had mentioned earlier. Is there still time to pick up a Dion Lewis? Are you at the point where people were so high on Derrick Henry now that he was able to finally be the guy, quote unquote, the guy over there in Tennessee, that people have overlooked Dion Lewis as just a second option, where Lewis yesterday, he looked like he should be the starting running back going forward there for Tennessee. Certainly the running back that gave them the better chance to win.
Yeah, he's going to be a hard one, and the reason why is he's owned in 94.6% of leagues, so it's going to be, if he's available in your league, diamond in the rough type league for that one, where basically he's probably not going to be available in your league, so it's probably you're not going to be able to get him even if you wanted him to or wanted to get him.
How about Frank Gore? Again, with so many people looking at a Kenyon Drake?
I mentioned him last week, but the only thing I wasn't happy about Frank Gore is he didn't get a touchdown. That's what you're banking, because of Kenyon Drake, and really Kenyon Drake didn't have that great of a fantasy performance.
No, he didn't.
I'm looking at our league, and I'm basing everything point-wise off the MVP PPR scoring, but 9.6 in PPR leagues this week. Kenyon Drake didn't have that great of a week, and like I said, the thing that I mentioned was last week with Frank Gore is if you're going to go after him, he's got to get those touchdowns.
Yeah.
That's what he's got to do. He's got to get those touchdowns, and he didn't get it. So it's a Frank Gore thing, and I only know this because I owned him at the very tail end of his years in Indy. Even as a starter, it was he either gets a touchdown and you get 10 to 12 points, or he doesn't get a touchdown and you get 6 to 8. That's Frank Gore. So if you can live with that, sure, go ahead, put him as a flex or a bench running back. But other than that, you'll probably have to find a different route for your running backs.
Ricky, to wrap things up here today, and it doesn't even necessarily have to be within our league. It could just be in general. Who would be your 2, maybe 3 top ads this week on the waiver wire if they're still there because of good performances this week? If they're still there, you're going and getting them.
Yeah, I am looking at the wide receiver position, and number 1, I am looking to Deshaun Jackson. There was a big injury that we have not talked about that I'm going to mention here. Sources say it was brought up tonight on Monday that Doug Baldwin has a grade 2 partial MCL tear in his right knee. I don't know how many people know Spanish, but that is no es bueno if you're a Doug Baldwin owner, because anything with the knee, ACL, MCL, that's not good. And I'm trying to see in this article if it says anything about how long. Let's see. Pete Carroll had no update to how long he'll be out. However, with a grade 2 MCL injury, I am looking at that, and if I'm a Doug Baldwin owner, I am panicking. Deshaun Jackson's a guy. After that first week, I'm overreacting.
And I also have to tell you, Deshaun Jackson did leave that game with a concussion.
I'm still grabbing him. And the reason why is even if he doesn't play this week, you still have one more game possibly with him and Fitzpatrick. And let's be honest, catch the onside kick because we're going to talk about Fitzmagic and what Jameis Winston's future could be. If Fitzmagic gives this team a chance to win, if I'm the Bucs, I ride with them because I just don't see Jameis Winston doing anything close to what you did in week 1. And if this turns out to be the real deal, ride it. And I mean, fantasy owners, I would early on put a claim in on Deshaun Jackson, get him, obviously kind of watch him throughout this week to see if you can go ahead and grab him. Because like I said, he's only owned in 41.7% of leagues. And then another guy I'm going to look at too is there's actually, I'm trying to see which one. I'm going to throw 2 extra guys. I'm going to give you 3 if that's okay.
Yeah.
Ted Ginn is one. I almost picked him up this week. Like I said, he's only owned in 17.2% of leagues. He got 20 points last week. Do I expect 20 points again against Cleveland? No, but he's on the Saints. He's going to get targets. Drew Brees spreads that ball around like butter on bread in that passing offense. And then one that's just interesting. He's only owned in about 5% of leagues. Phillip Dorsett, 19.6 points for the Patriots. Maybe Tom Brady has found how to get the most out of Phillip Dorsett, who his kind of career looked dead in Indy before going over to the New England Patriots. I'd pick him up, although he's going up against Jacksonville this week.
And now my two, I know I for sure have two. The first one is a guy I talked a little bit about last week, and he's certainly carrying over to this week. It's Kenny Stills. Kenny Stills had 4 catches, over 100 yards, 2 touchdowns.
I left him for you.
Thank you.
I said the second one I had, the Dorsett one, because I know you wanted to talk about Kenny Stills.
I did because I really think that Kenny Stills is now the number 1 guy over there in Miami. While I do believe as well that he can be a boom or bust type of guy, he's either going to get you a whole lot or he's probably not going to get you much at all. You still want to have him on your team because now especially he's going to be more of a boom guy because there's more opportunities for him. There is no more Jarvis Landry. And clearly Sunday certainly showed that they don't really have a whole lot of other guys around them to make them good. To be honest, I mean, Danny Amendola's there. He does not scare me. Grant's there. He doesn't scare me. Kenny Stills is your guy out there in Miami. He's the one who certainly needs to be targeted.
That Miami-Tennessee game was just weird because I wonder if it was both of those teams are avoidable for fantasy or if it was just the circumstances of the game where the huge delay, and even before the delay it was kind of a weird game to begin with. So I wonder if that was just a weird matchup to where it's like forget it and move on, or if it's going to turn into something or just be nothing.
And then the second guy that I am looking at is, how about Phillip Lindsay? Phillip Lindsay
with
from
the Chargers?
No, Phillip Lindsay from the Broncos.
That's right, the Broncos.
Everyone, and myself included,
guy.
I'm looking at Royce Freeman. Everyone's looking at Royce Freeman as the guy.
Points.
He only had 7 points, but him and Lindsay had the same amount of carries, 15 for 71 yards. Lindsay was the one who got involved in the passing game and caught, I think, a long 29-yarder for a touchdown. Yeah. And that's why he had more points. And a lot of people are saying, it's just the hot hand. That's what was happening over there in Denver. But maybe not. Maybe this is something that's going to continue to be a trend, and maybe it's going to be, this is the committee that they're going to have. Everyone believed it was going to be Royce Freeman and then possibly Devontae Booker. Devontae Booker looks like he's getting completely phased out. It could be Royce Freeman and Phillip Lindsay. Phillip Lindsay yesterday had a really nice day. If you can still go get him, go get him.
2 rookies are out.
Undrafted, I think, Phillip Lindsay out of Colorado. So that's definitely a guy that you want to be going and getting because he certainly looks like he can run the football effectively and he can catch some passes out of the backfield. I still like Royce Freeman. I think Royce Freeman's going to be the better back in fantasy. But Phillip Lindsay, unless it was just a fluke yesterday, he's going to be a guy you'll want to go and get.
I just find it so funny. I mean, Royce Freeman, 3rd-round draft pick this year, and then Phillip Lindsay, undrafted free agent out of this year's draft, are pushing Booker basically to the wayside after week 1.
Well, absolutely, but that's what happens. Devontae Booker has had about, 3 years to make a difference and make an impact over there in Denver. It just hasn't happened for him. Ricky, before we wrap things up, anything else you'd like to add?
I am going to really quickly, because you mentioned it, I am going to, if you have Aaron Rodgers, let's say you were a guy in fantasy or a girl in fantasy, and you were like, I've got Aaron Rodgers. I don't need a backup quarterback. I'll find a backup during his bye week. Go pick up Fitzmagic. Going up against the Eagles this week, Eagles squeaked out with a win against the Falcons. Tampa Bay could be an upset special this week against Philly. Look at Fitzmagic. He could be one that could really help you out. Other quarterback for Aaron Rodgers kind of owners is also, you might want to take a look at Patrick Mahomes. Yeah, he's going against Pittsburgh this week, but he had a really good week 1. Like, really good week 1. He could be a guy that you look to to kind of say, oh, maybe I could use him instead of Aaron Rodgers. And then Tyrod Taylor as well. He's only owned in 37. There's a bunch of quarterbacks basically that you can look for if you maybe had Aaron Rodgers in your fantasy league.
And that'll do it. Week three edition of What's Your Fantasy. Had a lot of fun yet again, Ricky. And if you want to...
I'm just looking at quarterbacks now.
I know you are. Because you completely didn't even hear what I said to you. I could have said, Ricky, the building's on fire. You would have sat in that chair.
No, you said it was a good week. Yeah, it was a good week.
But
it was a good week.
Make sure you become a patron. Go to our Patreon page and become a patron. You can come on this podcast for just $10. You can come on here, and you don't have to give just $10. Ricky, it can be $1.
Yeah.
It can be $1
and
to support and be a
Patreon
patron.
Podcast.
And you get a Patreon podcast. How about that? How about that? You should definitely do it. If you don't want to come on here and talk fantasy football, which why would you not? Because right now, fantasy football should be like your life, especially on Sundays. But I think if you don't want to come on here, you can always go on the Primetime Podcast, the Onside Kick, the Fast Break, Rick and Johnny.
Yep.
I mean,
Too Old the Game.
Everything. You can go on anything, and we've got a lot of options for you.
Also, I was just going to give an update. Halftime of the Jets-Lions game, we are beating Austin 83.1 to 67.7 because Matthew Stafford only has 0.7 fantasy points, and Marvin Jones only has 2.1. Yes.
Matt Stafford, I've got him in my big league. He is doing me zero favors tonight. Also, if you want an MVP t-shirt, check out mostvaluablepodcast.com.
This ain't it.
That's not it.
No, this is a Johnny Wrestling t-shirt.
And this is what I wore to work today, and it wasn't the MVP t-shirt. But certainly make sure you check out mostvaluablepodcast.com. Go to the store there. Dave is modeling it. Again, I think we need to get a better model for that t-shirt. Maybe one that people will actually then want to buy it. But maybe what's her name? Brooklyn Decker? Maybe if she was wearing it.
But we don't have any female cut shirts. It's just a regular t-shirt.
Doesn't matter. She'd be wearing it.
Okay.
So do that. Make sure you do that. And then finally, make sure you head to iTunes. Ricky, I don't know if we've figured it out yet online on iTunes how to get What's Your Fantasy up there so that they can...
It's all about waiting on iTunes.
All right, we're waiting on the tunes. We're waiting on the tunes, but definitely make sure you go over to all of our other... Hold on, Ricky. I'm done with you now. So make sure that you go to all of our other podcasts, the Primetime Podcast. Make sure you check that out. The Onside Kick, Fast Break, every podcast that we've got. Go on, give it that 5-star rating because we are always looking to, just improve our score. And hopefully we are giving you the best possible
that Primetime Podcast one. We're not a couple of good old boys.
Yep, you fit it in yet again. So, again, that will wrap up this week on What's Your Fantasy. For Ricky Widmer, I'm Brandon Swanson saying so long, everybody. Have a wonderful week and enjoy week 2 in the NFL. And definitely use our feedback because we're winning, at least for this week. So long, everybody.